Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your source material and distill the crucial insights you need to be an expert fast. And today, we are diving deep into a topic that honestly should be top of mind for every single leader and manager out there. It's all about how to keep your best people engaged and, on your team. I mean, if you're paying any attention at all to the talent market right now, you know the stakes are just incredibly high. The sources we've looked at today, they point to this really alarming truth. A staggering 51% of employees in the U.S. are either watching for or actively looking for new jobs. Just think about that. Half your workforce might be polishing their resume as we speak. So our mission today is to cut through all that noise and give you a strategic roadmap to prevent that talent drain using the research you provided.
Exactly. And that roadmap, as the sources just lay out so clearly, isn't really about tweaking compensation. It centers on effective strategic employee recognition. To put a simple definition on it, employee recognition is really just acknowledging and rewarding people for their hard work, their achievements, their contributions. And these motivators can be, they can be incredibly broad. It can be something as simple as a few specific words of thanks, or it can go all the way up to cash bonuses, promotions, that sort of thing.
And the sources are, they're completely unequivocal on this.
Yeah.
They reframe recognition entirely. This is not some optional, nice-to-have perk.
No.
It's an essential business imperative.
It is. It has to be, because the cost of replacement, the pressure on retention, it's all just too high for this to be a secondary HR function anymore. So we're going to spend our time today unpacking the hard data, the real links between recognition and things like retention and engagement. Then we'll look at the specific program types that actually work. And maybe most importantly for you listening, we'll dive into 8 critical tips for how to actually implement this effectively.
Okay, let's start with the data. That's the foundation, right? If recognition is this lever we can pull, what's the quantifiable link? How does a strong program actually keep people on board?
Well, the statistics really make a compelling case. Companies that have strong, ongoing recognition programs, they see a 31% lower voluntary turnover compared to organizations that, don't have formal
31%. Wow. That's not just a soft benefit. That's direct cost avoidance. That's budget relief right there.
Absolutely. And it gets even more interesting when you look at longitudinal data, so tracking employees over time. Those who are consistently well recognized are 45% less likely to have left their job after 2 years. And the sources even dig into the quality of the recognition. They found that if an employee is getting what they call high-quality recognition, that person is 65% less likely to be actively looking for a new job.
Wait, hold on. 65% less likely to even search for a job.
Exactly.
That's the key, isn't it? It's not just stopping them when they get an offer. It's preventing the job hunt from even starting.
Precisely. It keeps them mentally committed. It moves the job from being purely transactional to something, more fulfilling.
Okay, so that's retention. Let's pivot to the other half of this, which is engagement. The sources define engagement as worker interest and commitment. It leads to better job satisfaction, higher output. But where are we starting from? What's the baseline for engagement in the U.S. right now?
We are starting from frankly, a deeply concerning place. Gallup's research consistently shows that only about 33% of U.S. employees are actually engaged at work.
A third.
And that number drops to a shocking 23% globally. So, the majority of the workforce is just clocking in and doing the bare minimum. There is so much untapped potential out there.
So if we can move that needle, what's the business impact? How does recognition pay for itself on the productivity side of things?
The ROI is, it's striking. Organizations with highly engaged employees see a 21% higher profitability.
21%.
And the ripple effect just continues. Those same employees show a 17% increase in productivity and a massive 41% reduction in absenteeism. So you're making more money with the same number of people, and they're actually showing up to do the work.
This is where it gets really interesting. And honestly, this might be the single most important statistic for any leader listening. The sources reveal the #1 reason employees actually resign. What is it?
It's the simplest and I think most devastating takeaway from this whole deep dive. 66% of employees, that's 2/3 of your staff, would leave their jobs if they didn't feel appreciated.
Wow.
That makes lack of recognition the #1 reason for resignations. Bigger than pay, bigger than benefits, bigger than a bad boss.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here. 66% would leave if they don't feel appreciated. Isn't that just code for, I want more money? How do we know it's not just about the financials?
That's an excellent and a really necessary question. The data shows it's different because recognition speaks to intrinsic motivation, not just, extrinsic rewards. If it was purely financial, the number one reason for leaving would be salary. But it's not. It's about feeling valued. Recognition strengthens what they call the psychological contract between an employer and an employee. That basic trust that your efforts matter and that someone is actually seeing them. And that is what unlocks discretionary effort.
Okay, tell me more about that. Discretionary effort.
Yeah,
That sounds like the engine that's driving that 17% productivity boost.
it is. It is. Discretionary effort is simply the willingness of an employee to go above and beyond their job description. It's the extra mile they go without being asked. When someone feels valued, they become personally invested in the company's success. They put in extra time, they think creatively, they solve problems, all things that aren't really tied to their paycheck, but are tied to their sense of contribution.
That makes perfect sense. If I feel like my work matters, I'm going to give more. But this can't be a one-size-fits-all thing, right? A generic email once a quarter isn't going to cut it. What are the specific types of recognition the sources talk about?
Right. You absolutely need a multifaceted approach. Different people value different kinds of affirmation. The sources really emphasize 4 modern types. First is peer-to-peer recognition.
So employees recognizing each other.
Exactly. Usually through some kind of digital kudos system. The sources stress this is one of the most important types for building culture. It makes appreciation constant, not just top-down. Second is the more traditional manager-to-employee recognition, the formal acknowledgement from leadership for great work. Third is milestone celebrations. Think service awards, 5, 10, 20 years, but also celebrating big project completions or even personal achievements. And fourth, of course, is performance-based rewards, the tangible stuff, cash bonuses, gift cards, points systems.
And on those tangible rewards, the sources really highlight personalization, right? That giving people a choice. I think they mentioned examples like offering over 100 different gift card options.
Yes, exactly. Choice validates the individual. It shows you, they're not just a cog in the machine. Another powerful example the sources mention is team awards. So instead of focusing on a single hero, you're recognizing great teamwork. That's essential for strengthening bonds within a team and motivating the whole group.
That sounds great for morale. But if the goal is to reinforce good behavior, timing has to be critical.
Oh, it's everything. Delayed gratification works very poorly here. The sources are clear. Immediate recognition reinforces the behavior far more effectively than some annual award. If you wait 3 months to say good job, the impact is lost. The employee might already be feeling unappreciated by then.
Okay, so that moves us perfectly from the what and why to the how. The sources lay out 8 critical tips for building a recognition program that actually works. Let's dig into those because this is where most programs seem to fail.
Right. The first step is to treat this like any other business function. You must define precise objectives. This means recognition has to be tied directly to measurable business outcomes.
So not just participation ribbons.
Exactly. Tie it to hitting sales targets or improving customer sat scores or reducing safety incidents. If you can't measure the change, you can't prove the ROI.
That immediately gets over the skepticism of this being a fluffy HR thing. Okay, what's step 2?
Gather employee feedback. This is tragically overlooked. Gallup found that only about 10 or 11% of employees have ever been asked about their recognition preferences.
Wow.
So you're basically just guessing. You could be spending thousands on rewards that nobody actually wants.
Which flows right into the third tip, and maybe the most important one. Make recognition personal.
Precisely. You have to tailor it. And this is about more than just letting them pick a gift card. The messaging itself has to be specific. Don't just say, good job on the report. Say, thank you for staying late on Friday to double-check that data. Your attention to detail prevented a huge error for our biggest client. That specificity, that's what makes them feel seen.
It shows you were actually paying attention. Okay, tip 4. We touched on timeliness, but it's about consistency and frequency. What does frequent really mean here?
Yeah, Gallup's data shows that recognition just a few times a year has almost no impact on engagement. It needs to be a regular, ongoing habit, part of the daily or weekly routine, not some big annual event.
And since not every achievement is a huge deal, tip 5 is about incorporating multiple strategies, balancing formal and informal.
Yes. The big formal awards for major milestones are important, but so are the informal, low-cost things. A handwritten thank you note, a shout-out in a team meeting. Those small, spontaneous acts validate the important daily grind.
Number 6 addresses something critical in today's workplace. Integrate recognition into workflows.
This is key. Recognition works best when it's built into the tools you already use every day, like Slack or Teams. If you have to make someone log into a separate, clunky platform they never use, they just won't do it. You're creating friction that kills the whole program.
Okay, tip 7. Celebrate publicly, but with a big asterisk.
Right. Public celebration is great because it amplifies the impact and it shows the whole team, this is what success looks like here. But the caveat is crucial. You have to respect individual preferences. Some people find public praise deeply uncomfortable.
So you need a private option.
You absolutely need a private option. You have to recognize people in the way they want to be recognized, not the way you want to do it.
And the final tip, number 8, brings it all back to strategy. Measure and optimize.
If this is a business imperative, you have to track it like one. Track frequency, correlate it with your retention and productivity data, and survey your employees to see if it's working. That's how you prove the ROI. Now, one of the big critiques in the source material is about how companies actually do this. They tend to rely on fragmented point solutions.
What do you mean by that?
They mean you've got one tool for rewards, a totally separate one for surveys, and maybe a third for communication. It creates all these data silos, it's complex, and you can't see the whole picture.
So if a leader listening wants to connect all those dots and actually execute on those 8 tips, what's the solution?
The sources strongly advocate for a unified platform approach, something that centralizes recognition, communication, rewards, all of it into one seamless system. This gives you that holistic view, so you can actually see the patterns and correlate recognition with those business outcomes, like the 31% lower turnover. And importantly, these systems are usually built to be mobile first, which is critical for engaging your frontline workers who aren't sitting at a desk all day. That really is the ultimate takeaway for you, the learner. Recognition isn't just an HR activity. It's a measurable, crucial part of your core business strategy and culture building. So to recap the biggest findings, recognition is a powerful lever that directly reduces turnover. Remember, well-recognized employees are 45% less likely to leave. And it fuels that intrinsic motivation, that discretionary effort that drives a 17% increase in productivity and higher profits. Well, now, knowledge is most valuable when it's actually applied. This raises a really important question for you, the leader listening right now. The source found that 90% of employees are more likely to put in that extra effort when they're noticed. So given that, what are the high-impact, low-cost things your team could start doing today to move that needle without waiting for next year's budget?
That's a challenge worth accepting. If recognition really is a strategic imperative, how can you make sure your program is frequent, personal, and data-driven, and not just some perfunctory, forgotten annual event? Think about which of those 8 tips is most neglected in your world right now, and how fixing just that one thing could prevent that shocking 66% of your people from feeling unappreciated and, well, walking right out the door.